In the chaos of a vast universe, very much like our own, a collection of forces came together and through much struggle created a planet. Forged in fire and tempered by ice, a world was born, suffice for life. This was Omnia. This planet, Omnia, brimming with potential, built up and broke down all the elements flowing through it, with microscopic factors coming together to create the building blocks of a bigger world. Forces great and small struggled in the blind terraforming of a truly magical landscape. And in this world weathered by millennia of terrestrial and cosmic consequences, the spark of life takes centre stage. Complexity develops as entropy falls behind. Life and death. The revolution of reproduction carries survival forward, encouraged and enabled by their environment, influenced by the complex systems of Omnia that led them into evolution or extinction. A creature soon emerges, brimming with potential and ambition. Its sights set ahead. Humanity. Social creatures by their nature. They came together to survive in groups and they spread across the globe as hunter-gatherers in search of better lands to exploit, just like many other animals. But they were born with a unique intelligence and awareness of their place in the world, allowing them to grasp at the intangible and to create purpose. This ability let them take the raw materials around them and craft a revolution the world had never seen before. Tools, traditions, complex language. They conquered fire and made it their own, creating the very torches that illuminated the path that lay before them. They used their intelligence to mould the world around them, leading them to settle down and plan their way forward. Instead of searching for their food, they cooperated with their world and uncovered its potential. An agricultural revolution. This greater system of food production led to surplus, which led to being able to sustain such numbers of people never conceived before. They outgrew the necessity for all to work the land, creating opportunity for greater collective learning, producing more potential innovators, and developing a complex society. Civilization. While many still worked the land, others had the chance to discover, manipulate, and build upon everything around them. The diversification of labour led to leaders, craftsmen, doctors, judges, priests, bureaucrats, soldiers, tax collectors, servants, and rulers. Mankind thrived on manipulating the natural world. They exploited materials, animals, and even one another. The long path ahead of them made no promises to be just, and many innovators created systems in which they and their own were on top, and others were below. A system perpetuated. Injustice prolonged. A people oppressed. A struggle of power. Is this the nature of mankind? A brutal crusade of social injustice, a mere culmination of our species, doomed to repeat this end of history time and time again? Or is this just the prologue to revolution? A story that has been told 1,000 times over, but every word must first be spoken. Every letter must first be written, and every great movement of mankind begins with one person taking that first step.
The sun began to set on another day, as it had done countless times before, rising and falling all around us. One day, I dreamt I might be allowed to sit under the shade for a short time, as the sun blazes over us. But for now, I must remain working in the fields under the heavy heat, as it is the way of things. My father claims we should take pride in being slaves. We are part of something bigger. We have work, and in return we are granted the liberty of life itself. We work the land, owned by our king, with our bronze plough, owned by our king, and we produce the food that is owned by our king. We barely own our names. I am R, as is my father, and his fathers before him. The faces change, but the function remains. We are the enslaved. My father, behold, look upon our works. We mere men who have laboured for great gains now watch it taken away by those who decide which roads that they take from us, while naught remains but a handful, or half, that barely sustains us alone. My father, wizened and wise, sat me down and told me of our ancestors, their lines, their times. Long ago the lands were chaos, without order, that mankind were never social creatures. They were akin to animals. Then, the incredible few arose and formed a state of things, and these few forged a path ahead over millennia. The first in our longest line bore the name Were, the first civilized people within their cradle of civilization, wisely following the kings of their time. This long lineage lasted for centuries. But while kingdoms and empires around flourished, the nation wherein the line of war lived instead faced inwards and fought amongst themselves, all arguing over their ideal world, and that violent destruction of the way of things tore down their society, and it collapsed. Be grateful, he told me, that our longest line survived, becoming the line of R and wisely following the new kings, those incredible few who granted us life and stability. Returning to our labours under the blistering new sun, working the fields and facing spears and whips for miles around, I cannot help but dream of some slight difference at the very least. The slave driver soldiers sneer at us. The free people ignore us. The king is seldom ever seen. There could be small changes, at least. My father, listen, this eternal torment of a life cannot be for the best. Surely there is some better way. My son, he says as he looks down at me, if there are faults in the way, then it would be common sense for our kings to correct them, would it not? Even if, by some divine happenstance, that you, he told me, perceived a flaw that they simply overlooked, then surely they would come to see it in time. There is no need to collapse the foundation of society to see it amended. There is a natural moral arc of the cosmos that bends towards justice, my son. Trust in the way. The sun sets again, and the next day the grains are fewer, for reasons unknown, while the king seems in passing a little fatter than before. I look to my father. Hark, does this not prove? But he shakes his head. It is just the way of things. Hark, I call as we leave the lands at the end of another countless day, and I see a body in the field, a friend, another enslaved who worked and lay now not far from my father and I. His rags are red, and the mark in his back was unmistakable, the same as the spears that glinted like the sun and hung above their heads for most of the day. We had heard the night before that he had stolen some meat for his family, and now he lay slain before us. My father tutted behind me. Alas, it's a shame. But if he sought to save his life, he ought to have invested in fewer children. He got what he deserved. In horror, I can barely breathe, and I lash out at my aging father for his heinous discretion. But he defends with his words as if reading from scripture that for every one of the incredible few are the hundreds who've followed and lived and the thousands who've turned away and dies. It is the way of things, he told me. He frames it so, but I am grown enough now to see the truth. It was never the kings who granted us life. The kings have etched themselves into histories as if it were they alone who founded their times, and not the work of countless nameless people of mankind. The many who allowed the few to live their divine lives, but the structure of the system resigned them to a little more than a drop in the blood of their descendants. Their stories never truly told. This world is rotten and stained red, built on blood, and my father, the elder, is more than happy to clean their bloodied spear. Hark, I say, some days, or months, or years from the last, to him and to anyone who listens, as the crumbs grow fewer and our population dwindles drastically, as the bronze in which we are bought and sold crumbles under an iron fist, as the sea peoples cripple our king's forces from afar, as we face collapse because we have such an immutable system around us. Is this not the end? My father turns away, as he often does now, believing I am too far gone. I barely speak out loud to him anymore. I speak more to be heard. I do not want to be resigned to history as a hapless fool who perpetuated the way and was unaware of our impending doom. I work on in contempt under the blistering sun. There was little I could do, but a complaint loud enough for the survivors, but soft enough to escape the slave drivers may satisfy my contempt. I will not go silently, but perhaps softly. Spears now pierce the enslaved out in the open, in view of all, and the fear of death was certainly an incentive for silence. But I was still heard by the many around, and nothings turned to nods, and nods turned into closed fists. The grains are fewer every day. In many days there's naught to be found at all. While the lines around us are cut short by famine, yet the crops we produce have never been so plentiful, and the soldiers seem a little less slim. We cannot sustain. There's enough for us all, but not in the way that things are now. Waiting for change is not an option. We are coming to the brink of extinction. We cannot sustain. My father feels the change, as if the air around us has been growing heavy and hot. He comes to me and addresses me as his son, the younger. But I tell him there is only one and it is neither me nor my own child. He stands alone with that slave name. He told me, your soul sight will lead us astray. A slave's selfish greed for freedom will collapse our way of society. The food may be less than enough, but it is better than none at all. And that may be the future if we risk the way like this. I turn away. When the way does wrong, it's just in its nature. But if someone tries to be better, That is some great perversion of the natural order of things. He acts as if the present state of things has been etched into history, unmalleable and eternal, ordained by the gods. To shatter their will, according to him, will destroy the world. If this is the best the world can be, then it's not worth saving. The king comes to bless us for a new year as the sun sets on the eve of this year. A ritual that kept many going with the hope the gods would save them. But the truth has begun to set in, and the gods would never come to save us. We sat on our hands and knees as he waddles his way towards us, gracing us with the smell of his miniature meal. A small reward for himself for walking so far, but a mighty feast in our eyes. I feel the handle under the dirt beneath my hand. Even as it fades over the horizon, the sun burns heavy from above, and the shade is still mere feet away. Torches were lit for the ritual, and the king stood with it in his hand. He who chose were time charged, for he held the light and decided which path it shined upon. My father sits to my side, and I feel his gaze upon me. I look ahead at the great slave farms that made up most of the land around the city. Most around were enslaved peoples serving this one cruel man who stands before us. The man beside me, R, would do anything for the king before us, but the king would never do the same. My father and his fathers before him helped to build this world. I look upon his works and I despair. These two cruel men deserve each other. R finds privilege in the fact he will die and no longer suffer this world, and he dares not disturb his final days by risking it all. However, he dooms his son and his grandson to the long fate of enslavement, and for that, he is unforgivable. I think of my son and the hardship ahead if he lives in this world, and I cannot bear the thought of this life for him. He will not suffer the life of R. He is of my line. I am Codeby, the first face of a better world. My hand digs into the dirt and holds tight. A hoe fashioned into a mighty weapon. With the rise of my fist, I become the slayer of kings. I write history. The reign ends here. The world is turned upside down as the no longer enslaved peoples rise up and take down slave drivers. We fought for our lives, for the lives of our family, for the lives of everyone in this new world. I fight because I was born into this world, and I will die in this world, and I will do whatever I can to better this world. I take the flame from the corpse snuffed out light and I shine it bright down a path of a better way. R still sits, now alone, as the free people follow me into the city. The road ahead is long. I think as we walk, torch in one hand and my bloody blade in the other. The fight is still ahead. Tonight, we decide the way of things, and we bend the arc of the universe towards justice. Because to survive is natural, and to struggle is human. But to fight, divine.
In those days, those ancient days, and those nights, those ancient nights, many steps were taken to create a greater world. But not all steps forward went down a righteous path. Societies, once formed by humans to better care for one another, often grew back into the old ways. In creating a greater world, plenty of opportunities arose for some to craft or corrupt systems into protecting and profiteering some people over others, and thus injustice persisted. The revolutions of old were either forgotten or used as proof that their regime, even generations later, and reasons lost, was ordained by the people. And so, as their civilizations grew, the sights of society soon looked beyond caring for their brothers and sisters, and instead sought great riches, power, and lands. The working classes below adapted into the way of things. The ruling class's prosperity was all their prosperity. So they fought for their rulers' expansionist ideals, as enough was never enough. This corrupted cleverness of mankind, however, was pervasive, and so across this great world of Omnia, many rose up and claimed power and riches and lands and crafted and corrupted their own systems into great unjust civilizations. With these great countries encroaching upon one another, conflict became almost inevitable, creating forever wars until one is victorious. This was empire. Empires. To stop expanding is to collapse. To not see growth is to fail. To not dominate is to be dominated. Driven by the unjust systems, the civilizations churn ahead, led by rulers who see anything short of having it all be akin to the fall of civilization itself. The inevitable rush of history brought misery to the world. The magic of the world was burned away in the pursuit of great powers. The empires, as if a person itself, set its sights high, and all the peoples below became ashes in their conquest.
The kookaburras invaded. That's how it's written in the history books. The first sentence about our vast peoples and cultures and histories, and it begins with the actions of a distant and brutal people, simply because they were deemed a civilization, and we were not. My name is Amarak, but I suppose that name may die with me. Kookaburra sits in the oakum tree, merry, merry king of the bush is he. Laugh, kookaburra, laugh, kookaburra, gay your life must be. There were many of us, my beautiful people. We lived mostly a hunter-gatherer way of life, but we tended to the land too. We fished, we farmed, we traded. Oh, did we trade? All of the pretty little things we shared amongst our peoples. My people weren't the only ones in our lands. There were hundreds of groups, all different, all distinct, in small ways and in large ways. We were small, but we were grand. We didn't grow or expand as great as the far-off peoples, nor did we mine and find the minerals for such weapons, nor did we build such a violent empire. That, apparently, was our great historical crime. We were not without sin. What people are. We never claimed to have been perfect. We warred and we fought. We saw sickness and often failed our people in many ways. But we weren't savages. We were human. We loved, we had families, we sang songs and crafted pretty pots, we played games, we told stories, we bonded through hunts, and we talked as we foraged. We made plans and constructed longhouses, we negotiated and we joked, and we lived lives. They came upon Jermy horses with their weapons of steel, bringing civilization by force. A people from the east who called themselves the Kookaburras. They had an empire, the Kookaburra Empire. And from what I know of empire, they eat the world and grow sick. They stormed into my lands, down the Akamai River. They put their torches to our home and their blades to our protectors. They called us primitive as they enslaved our people and destroyed our lives, our traditions, our art, our songs, our gods, our stories, our lands, our names, all slowly stripped from us. Our people only known by the names they gave us. Karawathans. Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, eating all the gumdrops he can see. Stop, Kookaburra, stop, Kookaburra, leave some there for me. Karawatha, land of the pines in their tongue. This region, dissimilar to their own, was given that name. I lived in these lands all my life, even travelled around them, and yet I have never seen the full extent of it. It's an enormous land, though not as large as the Kookaburra's own. Every people within our region became one people, the native Karawathans. That's it. Our cultures erased, our differences ignored, our relationships void, our histories killed. An over-exclusive exonym. My people, my culture, my history, myself, considered in the eyes of the greater world to be the exact same as another people I had never heard of who lay 1,000 leagues away, sitting on the edge of the Karawatha border, lumped together as one group. The native Karawathans of Karawatha. Sometimes, if we're lucky, we're just referred to Karawathans. But that's more often than not reserved for the descendants of Kookaburra invaders who settled in our lands. At my old age, after my family, my beloved, and my children have died, and my culture gone, with the people displaced and the history forgotten, I hear the younger generations of other Karawathans claim that it was all inevitable. They believed the Kookaburra was stronger in many aspects, from farming to metalwork to cities and science, that this was the only natural outcome. As if people were like water running down a stream. We're not. This is just not how things are. As if those who carried weapons and swung them at my parents, my brothers, and my sisters had no choice in the matter. I remember their faces. The young boy who threw that spear. The older woman who kept striking even though it made no difference. I remember every single face. Real people who committed real actions. The words in the pages of history books do not flow there naturally. They record the choices real people made. By deeming it natural, you only excuse the horrific actions of the past, and justify their potential use again in the future. I look upon the young generations in my reservation as I sit in my old and weakened state and watch the boys talk with such confidence. I've figured it out by now, but they have the luxury of ignorance, not yet seeing the still changing world around them. If the way things are now persist, mankind most certainly is not on a path towards a better world. They're on the road to hell, and these boys will know it. My people may die with me, but theirs will die with them too. 100 peoples have faded so far, and 1,000 more will fade with time, all in the name of empire, all in the name of history. I say it now, perhaps for the last time. My name is Amarak of the Tamkalan. I am myself. Kookaburra sits in the old gum tree, counting all the monkeys he can see. Stop, Kookaburra, stop, Kookaburra, that's no monkey, that's me.
In the rush of civilization, it can seem like one alone can do nothing. Like the cosmic tides, no matter how hard you push, nothing changes. As if it were all predestined, being read out by some descendant after the fact. We say we're living through history, we seldom say we are ever writing it. But there are those, the providential few, the privileged few, the powerful few, who are there with the quill in hand. Empires. It's in their nature to collapse, as nothing lasts forever. but how they fall apart and what happens to the pieces afterwards is in the hands of mankind. What comes next? That is the question. Who decides? Who supports? Who defies and who reports? Who would bear the whips and scorns of time? Civilizations fall and civilizations rise. Mankind rises. And so long as all the players do their part, the men, the women, the rest, then the path ahead may light the right way. However, as history is still forever being written, the words can rhyme with the times of before. The cunning, the crafty, the corrupting few who may rise to power through the systems that are and the systems that aren't, and like a snake in the garden, can be created in a new and unjust way. The light of a new day approaches, and amongst the dust of a fallen empire, new decisions are to be made.
The gate of the capital city opened slowly. We stood in its shadow and were washed in light as the heavy doors swung open. We five, the councillors of the People's Revolution of Armica, stepped into the captured city as our eyes slowly adjusted. The buildings around had cracks. Rubble lay along the streets, testimony to her recent successful siege. My eyes finally adapted, and there she stood. She almost seemed preoccupied, sweeping the ground like she had just done a few years before, when she was nothing more than a peasant like the rest of us. She seemed nothing of the sort now. Although she swept the street, cleaning her mess along with several other soldiers and serfs around, she undoubtedly stood out. 3 crowns rested carelessly upon her, bejewelled and finely crafted for the great sage kings who once ruled this land, recently slain by the woman who stood before us. One loose upon her head, another dangling along an arm, and a third resting upon her other arm. Mary Moran cared little for these objects, but adorned them anyway, as a show of power. It was at that moment I knew we had lost it all. The kingdom of Armica had turned upside down. In just a few short years, the sage kings in a pointless but devastating civil war over which many of the contenders would sit on the throne, leaving the country in ruin, put one force rose from the fire. Peasants, serfs, thralls and villains, an army of the discontented. Many coalesced together and changed the world. A council was assembled, with each councillor bringing their own expertise in some aspect of rule. One managed the farmers and both the collection and distribution of food, another sorted the health and care of the people, the third understood trade, a fourth maintained law and order within their territories, and I, Councillor Grey, kept a record of everything. I survey the lands we have, I take the records and analyse the information and consider proposed changes. I may weigh in on them, but it was never my place to act on them. I took notes. I looked at the world and interpreted it, but I suppose the point was to change it. That's where I failed, and where Mary Moran succeeded. In the early days of a rebellion, none rose higher in battle and planning than she. The excellent and strategically brilliant Mary Moran, who quickly rose to be elected chief of our militia and swiftly attaining the lands we then maintained. She fought and killed the 9 kings, freed the 9 regions of Armica from the tyranny of monarchs, and even captured the seemingly unconquerable capital city. And she did all of this consistently against our once wise orders. Watching her now, a smirk forming on her face, it was as if I saw the future play out before my eyes, myself trapped in my body and unable to change what was about to happen. I asked myself, What do you do when the hero who freed our world did so by defying us at nearly every turn? We told her to defend and not advance. She defied us. We told her to use guerrilla tactics and to not meet the enemy on open field. She defied us. We told her to allow soldiers to return home and help tend the land. She defied us. We told her to cut off supply lines and starve the enemy out. She defied us and she attacked. We commanded that she not throw herself into every battle she found, and she defied us. And she won every single battle. What stops her from defying us again? What stops her from doing anything she likes? The obvious answer would be to punish her. And that's what another counsellor stepped up to do. Mary Moran, ever gracious, smirking down in the short counsellor, calmed him and welcomed us into her city. She gestured to a building nearby, claimed beds were prepared for us, and that once she had finished helping her people construct an appropriate courthouse, she would happily stand trial. Astounded we stood. 100 eyes had gathered around us, looking on and awaiting our polite acceptance of her offer. The others soon agreed, and I followed. I documented what I see. I seldom carried the torch. Life moved fast, almost as fast as I could write. Around every corner was a soldier, or a cotter, or any other kind of peasant watching me. Once I was one of them. Now I felt like an outsider. They worshipped Mary Moran, the liberator, the saviour, and our efforts to keep the world moving beyond warfare were forgotten, now seen as a threat to their rescuer's life. The trial lasted a week. Deliberations upon deliberations, the fear of the mounting crowd outside and the fear of a free and powerful Mary Moran left a decision hard to make. But none came. As soon as the 7th day, a riot broke out. The court stormed, we taken prisoner, and Mary Moran freed by the people she had once freed before. Our lives were in the balance, but Mary Moran was a merciful God. To the shock of the people, to the shock of the council, but most certainly not to the shock of herself, she pardoned all 5 of us, and granted us the title of aristocracy. Each of us a lord and lady and noble, granted control of each of the 5 cities of Amica, and on top of that, she granted us the collective power to elect a new monarch amongst ourselves. A great power, even though it flew in the face of our revolutionary ideals. As I recall it now, it does make sense. A war to end all kings can't have the victor declare herself one. Not even the people would stand by that, especially if I took eliminating those who brought her here, a new dynasty built upon betrayal, a poor omen to be sure. The other councillors didn't know what to say, and I merely wrote it down. However, Mary Moran was not finished, and she proclaimed that she had freed the serfs of the land, that Amica would no longer be under the sole rule of a king, and with that she split the nation in 2. Becoming chief, she led her loyal free people into the rural lands, where she would rule the unthuldrum of Amica, while leaving us nobles to lead the coalition of city-states, the remnants of the kingdom of Amica. For the early weeks, we seemed to have won, in a sense. The great powers of the cities were ours. We should have control of the ways, and our expertise in our fields gave us an advantage at ruling. We were free to think of the future. Even vowing not to elect a king for such unjust hierarchies could once again spell disaster. But a city is nothing without its people, and the ideal of living free in the lands under the saviour that is Chief Mary Moran led to an emptying of the cities never witnessed before. On top of that, we had little to no military. We know farms and the wealth that was once hoarded within the cities had been taken by Mary Moran as she had sacked them. While we suffered, she prospered. The countryside, burnt by the Sage Kings, now saw new life, with rich farms and even richer trade. We were weak, starving, undefended and poor. We stood no chance. She thrived in war, and with the people on her side, we had to be careful. Plans were hatched, recorded by myself, though I proposed nothing and merely nodded along. A trade agreement, that was the ruse, and the confident Chief Mary Moran rode into the capital to see her victory come to fruition. Upon her arrival, what lasted of her army then leapt into action. She was seized and chained and brought into dungeons where none would find her. In those dark, torch-lit tunnels, we did unspeakable things, seeking knowledge about her unthiladrum and of the ways to conquer. Her smirk returned, and my heart dropped. Chief Mary Moran, ever the cruel god, gave us the decision between being saved or being destroyed. Her people would come for her, regardless of where she was. Even uncoordinated, they would overwhelm each city through sheer numbers just to have her back. But Mary Moran looked from one former counsellor to another, eventually resting her eyes on me. We have the power to fix that, don't we? A ruler who slaughtered her allies to rise to power may never be trusted. A ruler who forced her allies to accept her rule as unstable. A ruler who dominates her enemies' lands and installs herself as ruler as a savage. And a ruler who is not needed is not a ruler at all. Within a blink the days have passed. An army has amassed at my balcony. I often forget I am a noble, now the head of an aristocratic house of grey. But this overwhelming sight burns it deep into my mind, my place in this world. They cheer, for they have won. Mary Moran stands beside me, the declaration lays before me. The other nobles had signed it already. The Cairtaintach, the Great Charter, a constitutional monarchy. The nobles had the power to elect a monarch, and now we have. And this charter grants us the great power to overrule the monarch if our numbers are great enough, makes the monarch beholden to the laws, unifies Amica under a sole hereditary ruler, and grants various symbolic freedoms to the peasantry of the land. My hand quivers, the quill dropping ink onto the page I had written all my life, but the hardest words were that of my name on that fateful day. The revolution ends today. I remember thinking to myself, all our ideals swindled away, twisted back into the old ways with a prettier face. I felt her hand steady mine. It was hardened and calloused, but gentle and reassuring. This was the way forward for us. The cities would see migrants return, the farms would flow their foods all over the lands, the nobles would have real power, and they would be safer under the monarch's protection, as the monarch was safe under the people's protection, and all it would cost me was my soul. The sharp quill in my hand, I could have used it right, instead of writing down, merely agreeing with whomever was near, being a sign of my times. Perhaps I could have aimed for her neck, ended it there. But what would that cost? I asked myself. What we achieved, little may it be, was still more than most ever had seen. Feudal rather than a mere stratocratic tribe. With devolved powers and better management, a monarch somewhat held in line, and keys to power more scattered and free. Could I throw our work away in an instant? My eyes adjusted, as they did on the first day I knew we lost, and my name was written before me. Had I done that? Had she moved my hand as my mind was away? I suppose it doesn't matter. The ink had dried. I can only hope she carries the torch in the right direction, away from the old world and toward something new. The kings are dead, long live the Queen, shout the masses below. A ruler victorious in conquering the land, a ruler who vanquished unlawful kings, a ruler beloved by the people, a ruler needed by the aristocracy, a ruler who once turned down the rule for a greater cause, a ruler who pardoned and protected their lawful peers, a ruler who proved themselves in governing a prosperous land, a ruler elected by the nobility, and a ruler beholden to rights and responsibilities of a constitution. Queen Mary Moran, long may she reign.
The line of queens, kings and monarchs races ahead through bright ages and dark ages and the ages in between. The faces change, but the systems still exist. The pretense is replaced, but the injustices still persist. Perpetrators persevere, and the charge of time takes its toll. Atrocities for the sake of the great and bountiful new empires take place. But upon the stage stands the rulers playing petty politics as the powers around them play their games. Every act was met by mere sayings that history will soon judge them, allowing the perpetrators to live full lives unjudged. Generations pass, and those who then attempt to bring judgment upon the legacies of perpetrators were shunned for erasing history, allowing uncritical glorification. When new figures tried to recapture the glory of the old perpetrators committing the same atrocious acts, their opponents were met by mere sayings that history will soon judge them, and the ink dries. But time races onwards, and the new artifice fades into greater unjust systems, peddling people's lives for profits. Time and mankind collide, and technology wakes the world to greater powers, far more powerful than the natural magic of mankind alone, and civilization thrives on what they have thrived upon since the beginning: the manipulation and exploitation of the world around them. As their power increases and the injustices prevail, the planet they live upon begins to wail.
I stand outside the Narrator tower, standing amongst many, the starving masses, looking up at their cruel god, and she cares not. The High Mage looks down on me and my own, and she does not care. I swore, for a moment, I heard her voice carry across the wind, "It's just how things are. It's just good business." A famine had befallen all of Omnia, the ground growing tough and crops withering away before maturity. All peoples were suffering, save for the rich and powerful who had amassed a hoard of preserved foods. Flemuria fell into a war over the limited supplies they had left. Kookaburra focused on fishing, despite the seas filling with slime, and my continent of Richu simply seemed to decline. Within Richu lay my country of Reba Endo. Within Reba Endo lay the capital, Tereda City, and within that city stood myself and the many others pleading for food. We are poor, we are starving, we are without aid in the streets right outside the gates of an oh-so-powerful company, the Mages Guild. This was their Reba Endo branch, one fort in the great empire that is their multinational conglomeration, the shining tower of the capital age. And in crisis, they thrived because these mages had developed a magical technology that was far beyond the elements, surpassing alchemy, the pinnacle of thaumaturgy. They had created a machine that harnessed immense energy, mana from the deepest wells within Omnia, and transmuted crops out of thin air. Unlimited food in a time of famine is a miracle, and yet in this capital age it was bought and sold to the highest bidders. All nations bowed to the rule of the Mages Guild. This was the way of things, but it didn't have to be. My beautiful country, eroded by the climate and abused by the system, it simply cannot sustain itself in this way of things. The heads of state were granted food for loyalty, coin for favours, and power for their souls. They survived, even living lavish lifestyles, as the people they ruled over were granted next to nothing. Only those whose labour could be exploited were cared for, and even they were granted as much as they needed to keep on working, while the rest were expendable, a statistic in the eyes of their cruel business overlords. I looked up at the High Mage, president of the Unitary Mages Guild, visiting for some reason or another. She looked down at us, mine and my own, and she cared not. I'm no one to her, just some peasant. My name is Cato, but she'd never know that. I look up to her and I wondered what led her there, to be so cruel, to value gold and power over the lives of living human beings. If I were in charge, things would be different. I suppose it was that thought that might have started things. I was a teenager, still growing and developing, and at that moment the winds changed. It was so easy to know what I had done, like I had a new sense that felt it, and I was suddenly filled with hope. I had magic. I was a magic user. I won the genetic lottery, perhaps inherited, perhaps something hidden in my lineage, perhaps where I was born or who I interacted with, perhaps it was just luck, but the power was now in my hands. I could be a mage. Mage Cato. I left the crowd. I was useless to them as I was now, unlearned in the techniques and unknowing of the spells. I couldn't lead a revolution alone. I needed to be more powerful to do that. I revealed this privilege, this usefulness, to the institutions around and was accepted into a place of learning, a university under the Mages Guild. Years went by, learning, practicing, developing, empowering. I was taught the techniques of alchemy and the history of the guild. I learned the intricacies of spellcasting and the economics of managing a business. I understood the reality of nature, human, social, and economic, and I mastered how to handle the power I had and how to attain more. I would better this world. One day, I saw the machine for the first time. It was beautiful, a grand contraption littered with runes and reaching deep into the ground. Around it stood 100 mages, those who didn't do so well in their education, but were skilled nonetheless, and they cast constant spells operating the great machine. I looked down, and my eyes could not see the bottom. Miners, non-magic workers dug below the machine, allowing it to reach even deeper to suck of more of that great energy needed to transmute the crops. I could feel the energy through it. It was overwhelming. Half a second of the energy soaked up by that great beautiful beast was more than 1 million mages could bottle in their entire collective lives. It was truly awesome. This innovation was extraordinary. I was working with the gods, and the gods knew my name. What an honour. My position was elevated further as I worked under the Mages Guild. I could do little alone from the bottom, but if I helped the way of things, then I could reach the top, and then I alone could change it all. I was still young when I reached the position of food distribution. There was a lot, enough for the poor people I once belonged to. But if I did not manage it in a profitable way, I would never climb the ladder, and nothing fundamental would change. I followed orders and directed it away from those who needed it. I couldn't afford to feel guilty. I had a job to do, and one day I would change the world. I met with head of state for Reba Endo, and those who acted like kings before now seemed to grovel at my feet. I recalled the injustices they perpetuated, the injustices they still perpetuate, and I had no sympathy for them. But I had a job to do. Legislative change. I demanded certain new liberties for my branch, small changes in taxes, the curtailing of unimportant rights of the workers, and my higher-ups even granted my authority to demand some new land for myself. These were acceptable losses. The workers still had some rights, and I had been working my whole adult life so far for a good cause, so I deserved some land out of it. You get what you earn. You don't pass up on such opportunity. That's the basics of business, the basics of human nature. Anyways, once I'm in charge of things, I can undo these things. I can set it all right. The heads of state before me agreed to my terms and thanked me for my graciousness, and they turned to balance things out, cutting funding to key services to make up for the loss of taxes and displacing peoples to give me the land they agreed to. For a moment, I felt angry at them, hurting those below them, but then I recalled my role in their actions and my intent behind it. It will work out in the end. Anyways, not everyone could win. And if I were not here, someone else would have demanded the same, and even without the Mages Guild filling this space, the officials would probably have done the same anyways. It's just the way of things. My office was elevated, higher up the tower. I made more sacrifices for the cause as I rose. Eventually, I attained the role of Tenno Mage, the highest office in the Reba Endo branch of the Mages Guild. Now, everyone in my country knew my name, and I was starting to get noticed and even paid attention to by the higher-ups in the conglomeration. The name Cato was starting to mean something. I could see the bigger picture now. The shipments of products we got could, hypothetically, feed the whole nation quite easily too. At first, I was disgusted, but then I came to understand. To give it out for free would mean to lose all means of making money. Setting up homeless shelters to give out food would only attract those who had already eaten, and what's to stop other companies from abusing this to collect most of the food, and then, when we do start to run out, they would turn around and sell it. The Mages Guild would make nothing, I would lose my place, and the system would return to how it was, and I would have achieved nothing. So then I thought, perhaps selling it at cost value, but no, the mages who operated the great machine wouldn't work if they were paid any less. And without them, there would be no product at all, and the miners below were already paid the bare minimum needed for survival, and if my branch were making significantly less than the others around the world, we could be shut down and I'd lose everything. I considered limiting my own income, but that would only decrease the cost of their products by a little, and why should I suffer to save a few pennies of the many? They have done nothing, and I have done all this work to get where I am to try and help them. They should be grateful, but they gathered outside the gate in view of my office and only cried. I stood atop the Narrator tower, and I looked down at the struggling people below. Just wait, I thought. It would all work out, but they didn't seem to understand. Once, as I worked in my office, an organised riot broke out, led by protesters. It stretched far across the city, even destroying many of our ships. I was angry. That set us back quite a lot. We needed those ships to prosper. If our branch is shut down because of poor sales, Reba Endo would never get any of the food they need. I was helping them. Sales within this country were higher than they had ever been. That was good. It meant more people were eating well. I was the good guy, and yet they tried to sabotage me. I wasn't at the top yet either. There was still the High Mage who decided how much products I received, what my wages were, how much control I had. I was weak in the grand scheme of things. I just needed more time. But the ignorant masses below didn't understand. They hadn't gone through what I had. If they were like me, we could be in this together, but instead of leaving the crowd and doing what I did, they sat, did nothing. I could let them risk my operation. I gave the order to my subordinate to restrict their rights to association, to organise in groups that are a risk to the state, as well as increasing the funding of our authorities, cracking down on these risky actions by the unemployed low-lives without nothing else to do with their lives. The decades had passed. The famine still persisted. The products were still sold, and I had proved my worth, my loyalty, and my strategic mind to the Mages Guild. The successor to the High Mage was to be announced, and it was around that time they came to me. I had worked well into the night, and the moon beyond my window was hidden under clouds. I worked by candlelight. My co-workers came to me, good friends, good people. They had lovely families, and they too were just doing what they had to, so that they and their families could survive in this world. I had my own family at this point. I understood. They came to me and spoke honestly. I stood to greet them, and we went for a walk. I carried the candle with me as if it were a torch, illuminating our path forward. In this light, they told me the truth. I had heard rumours, mostly from protesters and activists, from disobedient heads of states and opportunistic whistleblowers, but I never really believed it. This great famine, that began when I was but a child, was no natural environmental catastrophe. It was a consequence of our magic. Not individual magic. That would have no significant effect. It was the power of the great machines. The life force, as they poetically called it, was being drained from the planet, and this resource was needed to maintain the climate. The original mages knew this but went ahead anyways. This famine was our fault, and it would only grow worse. The seas were turning to sludge, the air growing heavy, the forest would catch light, and the skies would soon turn red. It was a scary thought. They told me only the highest officials knew of this truth, and since I could be becoming the High Mage, I should know. They asked what I would do, knowing this, if I did become the High Mage. I thought for a moment. The world was dying because of us, because of this system. We were killing the world. But if we were to stop now, who knows how long it would take the climate to fix itself, if it could fix itself. And stopping now could mean all our food may not last us as long as we need for the land to be arable again. Other companies could jump in on this technology at any time and make a profit off it, continuing to destroy the land while we made nothing. We became nothing, and I would have destroyed the corporation I had worked so hard to improve and fundamentally changed nothing. Not to mention how my subordinates would react if I were to declare we were to make no more profits, to become a charity focusing on fixing the world and eventually shutting down. There would be a coup. I would be ousted and would have done nothing. Even a slow move towards change would damage our business. Investors would see a trend and get skittish. The stocks would suffer. Other companies would jump into the market, supply the demand, and all the economies we essentially have full control over would collapse. I lowered the candle from my face. The path ahead illuminated even clearer as I hid the shame from my eyes. I kept walking forward with them and told them it would be business as usual. As the High Mage, I had a company to run. It was a dog-eat-dog world. In this capital age, I couldn't give our competitors any room to thrive, or it would be the end of things. People were fed. Sure, not the masses, not the unemployed or the poor, or those who needed it the most, but the competition gave me an opportunity to sell for cheaper to make their smaller businesses unsustainable, which meant, statistically, more people had access to food. I was, as High Mage, doing good. I was philanthropic. I gave away a small portion of my income to charities across the world, which made it easier to convince the rebellious peasants that I wasn't the evil monster they thought I was. Not that they mattered. From my experience, all the lower classes ever really did was get in my way. They were useless, uneducated, poor and starving, and if they just did something with their lives like I did, then they wouldn't be in their situation. The world is better. Any injustices are just natural problems in a system such as this, and to risk making any fundamental change to that system could entirely collapse it, and then no one would profit. We may not be able to continue down this path. I understand that. But I won't back down until I have to. I won't lose out on all that profit while others get in on it. If I don't, they will, and then I've helped nothing and only lost what could have been mine. This is the way of things, immutable and eternal. As technology improved, so did our output, and eventually we were making enough product to feed the world's population twice over. We even had plenty profit that if we did distribute to the entire population, we'd all be rich. We could end world hunger and eradicate poverty overnight. But that's not how you run a business. Where's the profit incentive for that? In fact, it shows great restraint to not do that. I'm not giving in to base human urges and am instead focusing on fixing the world through the systems we have. Mass poverty and starvation is just a product of the system, and there's nothing I can do about that. You can't fight every battle. Being in charge means making the difficult decisions, like incinerating 30% of the product to ensure the price is high. It's called manufacturing scarcity, and it's very effective at running a business. Some could even call it magic. My name is High Mage Cato, and this is my success story. In my old age, still the High Mage, I returned to Ripa Endo on business matters, and I looked down from the highest floor of the tower. Masses of peasants had gathered, as they often do, and I judged them as statistics. How many could I starve to both maintain a survivable population and limit the number of mouths I needed to feed? I finished my calculations in an effective period of time and submitted my orders. This would be the last time I'd ever need to step foot into such an impoverished, ugly country. I hear a commotion below. The mob had become unruly, seeking to destroy the way things are because of some foolish ideal that they could do a better job. I step back out into the harsh polluted air and I see a riot. Quite brave for weak mortals within range of my security's weaponry. I remind myself to order the heads of state of this little country to criminalize such gatherings. That'll fix this problem of people coming together so easily. I hear a bell ringing. My ride has arrived to leave this waste of a land. But first, one last look. I stand atop the Tereda Tower, standing alone, the rich ruler of this world, looking down at the insolent mortals. And I do not care. I whisper to myself, it's just how things are. It's just good business.
The Capital Age. Suffering persists, and eventually the abusive systems and the perverse people who rule lead mankind down a dark and desolate path. And injustice persists, expands and reaches its absolute limit. The ages change, but the systems still exist. And like the empires before, Omnia witnesses another great collapse. When faced with devastation in all its totality, the path of least resistance can no longer be peace. For the people, for the companies, conflict became almost inevitable. And so, mankind brought about the end of their world. The end of their world as they knew it. Revolution in Omnia, all across the world, resisting the way and burning the predestined sponsored path ahead. Like a fever upon sickness, the way was burned away. And in the collapse, there was a rebirth. A collection of forces came together and through much struggle, recreated civilization, a better world for their image. So, forged in fire, tempered by ice, a new world was born. Suffice for a better life. This was no utopia, nor perfect in any way, but history doesn't end, so there's still time for change. Dictators rise and capital thrives, and there is still plenty of people who protect these ways. The world of Omnia is no paradise, but it is my home, and I will fight for it. I see old problems return and new ones too, but the struggle is human, to fight divine. And fight is what mankind has done since the dawn of time. Complexity develops and entropy follows, like life and death, in a dance of love, with every new generation a rebirth of the last, with another chance to do better, be better, see better, live better. Looking at our history, it's easy to forget that we still hold the quill of our age. We can all interpret the world, but the point of mankind is to change it. So, I leave you now with a voice of our time, a girl with a torch, and a path before her. This is a story that has been told 1,000 times before, but every lesson must still be retold, and every great movement of mankind begins with one person taking that first step.
We had won. My parents, my people and I, fighting since long before I was born against the oppressive dictators of our time. Our small country, Jalma Bebas, above the desert of Jalmadara, becomes the Republic of Jalma Bebas, a free people at last. Free elections, civil liberties and a better standard of living. Now ends the winter of our discontent and begins the springtime of nations. New governments, written by their free people working upon the world stage, their leaders merely players, enacting the will of their citizens. And in securing this peace, my parents, our new leaders take charge to keep the peace, to keep an order, to keep their rights. It's the way things are, Artis, they say. I listen, I nod, and I believe what they say, because we had won. But the way never changes. The threats stay the same. Martial law never ended, and elections still withheld. I fear what they are, what they've become. And with old rules returning, I flee from our home into the needless slums. I now stand from afar and I look what they've done. They said the greater good. This is not the greater good. It's fear, poverty, injustice. They lied to me. They lied to us. As the years race on ahead and the words of the old regime reappear for the new, the palace rebuilt over exploited labour, I can't let this be. I can't let it stay. I travel our lands and I lift our people up. I fight the fights of people I don't know. We band together, clasp our hands in the struggle. From digital worlds to the people on our streets, we rally support, inform the people we meet. We hide from the forces who think we threaten the way, and we gather our strength. We enter the stage. A country declines. No way to reform, so we must take it down. A fire sits before us, and the forest of sickness ahead. With saplings amongst us, we can start again. This is it. The fight of our lives. Again and forever. Until we get it right. And I stand before you in the dark of this night, around the fire not far from the palace, and I ask you to fight. But a voice comes to me, an elder at my side, with thoughts to share. Settle down, young one. We fought and we won. We dodged the chaos that could have engulfed us all. And you want to throw us back into that way, regress, destroy? Artis, you are a child at play. Is that true? I think, that I'll only destroy, disrupt, displace, bring us back to before? Our society is flawed, but it stands nonetheless. It stumbles, declines, but should we push it to fall? I don't want an end of all things. I want a new start. I can't wait or ask, will the system allow? My tomorrow might be better, or it might just be worse, and it might undo the achievements my parents did make. I look around at the people who surround, the oppressed, the marginalised, the allies, the powerful, the beautiful, the broken, the good and the better. I look at them all, from elder to younger. If they all fight, they could lose all they have, but if they don't, they may anyway over time. The way of the world: corruption, oppression, poverty, sickness. No healthcare, no liberties, no elections, no rights. No safety, no security for the people I know and I don't. If I don't fight this fight, what will happen to them? For those we see starving on the streets, to those who can't come out, hidden in their homes. To look at these people and to claim that this is the way is to look at the workers upon a polluted land and to claim it is human nature to cough. That's not right. If this is what a stable world looks like, then it's not worth saving. I will fight. I will fight. For tomorrow and the day after. For what's right. For what's better. For what could be. For what should be. Because I was born into this world and I will die in this world, and I will do whatever I can to better this world for this generation and the next generation. I will move forward and I will fight.
Each other's guide. I know we'll make it out of this one alive, and we'll be alright. Revolution lover, and we'll be alright. Revolution lover, and we'll be alright. Revolution lover, and we'll be alright. Your hope's been missing. I know we both could have almost died. I know it's harder every day to provide, but it's gonna change. I can feel it coming, and when it's here, we'll be side by side.